Cool. Hi, everybody. So like the nice thing about going last is you don't have to go first. And then the bad thing is that you have to follow the people who went first. So like over the break, I was like, okay, so like how quickly can I like rewrite this here? So it's fine. All right, so since this is a leader lab, obviously I'm going to be talking about my experience with leadership and kind of how I perceive it, how I've learned to recognize it, and things like that. But before I get into that, I did want to give you a little bit of context about me as a person so you understand where I'm coming from. So hopefully it'll make more sense where I kind of ended up, okay? So I'm the oldest of 4 kids. I'm also the only girl in my family besides my mom. Really fun times. I grew up in the west suburbs of Chicago and lived in the same town, same house, same place until I came to college here. When I first started, I was a double major in nursing and Spanish. So by the end of my junior year, I changed my major like 8 times. Fine. So I was in a lot of different disciplines, went back and forth between a couple of the same majors before I was like, no, I really don't want to do that. Let's do something else. So ultimately, I ended up where I am now, which is as a writing major. And funny story, I actually get to graduate on time. Like, haven't quite figured out how that worked, but it did, so I'm happy. And once I came to the writing department, I didn't really leave. My minors are in other departments, so like I guess that counts as leaving. But for the most part, this is pretty much home for me. And in addition to being a writing major, I'm also a writing consultant at the Writing Center on campus. It has a really big long title, but we call it the FMCFWAMA. It's a great acronym. And so here's where I'm actually going to pause and go tell you a little bit more about the Writing Center. So this year has been my 3rd year as a consultant and my 2nd year as a lead consultant. And my personal areas of specialty are APA citation style, resumes, cover letters, and personal statements. So now you know my consultant profile, yay. And so how many of you have actually been to the Writing Center? That's so exciting. Usually people are like, no, I don't know where it is. So those of you who haven't been there, do you know where it is? I mean, it doesn't really matter for the context of the talk, but I'm just curious. In case you want to know or go, it's in LOH and the Knowledge Market, so you should go because it's great. But anyways, how many of you know what it is that we do there, whether because you've worked there, like Johanna, or you've been there for a consultation, or you work nearby, or any of that? Yeah? Are you asking? Oh, no, I'm not asking. I'm sorry. I was like, oh, hands. Like, let's talk to people. Okay, awesome. So there's a lot of different things that we do there. Some of the main ones are brainstorming, outline, organizing, and stuff like that. And the foundation of what we do at the Writing Center is conversation. So during consultations, as you will know if you've been there, the majority of the time is spent with the consultant and the student talking, whether it's asking questions, sharing perspectives, seeing what is and isn't working in the paper, and stuff like that. So the reason that I paused to tell you more about the Writing Center is because this is the place where I learned how to be a leader and what it means to be a leader. So this is where I learned how to read body language and work off of people's facial expressions, and where I got marginally more comfortable with speaking in front of people, and where I learned how to give people assistance and like guide them forward in a path, specifically in this scenario with writing papers and things like that. So a lot of those skills that I learned there also transfer into how I had conceptualized leadership. But the characteristics that I've just mentioned aren't the only ways that I learned leadership at the Writing Center. So as consultants, we're trained to facilitate. So we don't edit or grade or things like that. We do everything in our power to give the students power. That's like the basis of what we do. So we ask questions, make suggestions, really work to encourage people, encourage teamwork, facilitate workshops, and things like that. So when I joined the CLA this past year, I noticed that a lot of the things that I'd been doing at the Writing Center and all the skills I'd improved or gained in the first place were also things that kind of helped me conceptualize how I see myself as a leader. So I am very much a behind-the-scenes kind of person. I don't often enjoy being in the spotlight. I'm most productive and often the most happiest when I get to be the person responsible for like sliding all of the pieces into this pattern and then watching them all fit together. So like when you're doing a puzzle with a gabillion pieces and you finally put the last piece in and you're like, I'm done. Like that kind of like satisfaction, and like that's what I really like about like my personal leadership is like you just set the pieces up and then they do what they will, and it's great. So for the longest time, I didn't see that kind of facilitation as leadership. So I thought leadership was being the boss, like think like capital letters here, like bold kind of like block letters going on with the boss. And I knew that I didn't think of myself as the boss. I was just kind of me, kind of doing my own thing. So it was this kind of thought process that made the DISC analysis we took at the beginning of the year a pretty big moment for me, because that was the first time that someone who was not me acknowledged that my style and like the things that I like to do were a form of leadership. I'm an SI, by the way. Hello. So now we're coming up to kind of the main idea that I did want to express, like the big idea that I've learned in my time as a CLA fellow. And that's that leadership is something that comes with a lot of variation. There's not really like a cut, copy, paste kind of formula to follow, and there's not a checklist where you have to like put the little mark next to your name of adjectives that fit your personality for leadership. It's a lot more than that, and it kind of sounds silly, but it took me a really long time to learn that lesson. So now, my idea of what it means to be a leader is when someone has these inherently awesome qualities inside you that the people around you notice and that they take note of and that maybe you know on like a kind of like a sub-level. So leadership as both action and process is more about how you use your strengths, or your wheelhouse, if you will, and how you use your identity and your experiences and your perspectives to further your development, the development of people around you, and overall enact change. And all of those many forms to lead. Thank you.
About how one thing that you really like doing is getting kind of from behind, and that you also mentioned that you like setting the puzzle pieces and then watching them all fit together. Could you kind of elaborate on like what you mean by that a little bit more? Because I get what you mean, but could you maybe give some good examples?
Yeah, sure. So since my talk focused a lot on the Writing Center, is it okay if my example like fits into that? Okay, so something that we do as consultants is we are in first year composition classes, like Writing 150 or Writing 098. And 098, we are in group settings, so there's 4 students who really don't want to be there, and a consultant who's trying to make them want to be there. So for me, kind of taking a leadership role in that position means like asking lots of questions. And like when someone is answering a question that's addressed to the room, I don't look at them because I want them to look at everybody else. So a lot of it's asking questions or making comments, or if someone goes off topic, then it's feeding into that conversation until the people all feel comfortable. Because if you're sitting with 4 strangers, you're probably not going to be comfortable, at least not initially. So a lot of the way I try to take leadership in that role and facilitate is asking questions and getting the students comfortable with each other so that it's a safe space for them to work. Yeah?
What are you going to be doing in the near future?
I'm sorry?
What are you going to be doing in the near future?
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Job-wise?
Well, I didn't really know for a really long time, and I kind of applied on a whim to this scholarship, and it was something I did want to do, and I actually ended up getting it. So I will be taking a Fulbright grant in Eastern Europe next year. Czech Republic. I'm really excited to be there.
Megan, I've got one for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned particular leadership qualities based on your personality. What would you say those are?
I definitely, this is kind of a funny one, but approachability. I work really hard both in person and especially at the different jobs I've worked in to make sure people are comfortable talking to me and asking questions. And that would be my second one, is I really like to ask questions. And I really like to learn about other people and about things I don't understand and things like that.